Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Welcome back, and thank you again for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Collin Manley. It is currently August 25th as of this recording. Been very busy days. As we're getting further into the fall, I've just been immersed with so many things going on, but luckily, baseball is also getting more excited because, my goodness, we actually have a lot of teams that are reaching that halfway point. We got there. That's pretty crazy considering all of the hoops that we had to jump through in the MLB right away with some early cases and outbreaks in teams with COVID-19. But things are actually starting to look like a normal baseball season, even if it's 60 games, which is awesome to see. So we have a lot of great things to talk to you about on the podcast today. We got to cover news and noise. We got to talk about everything going on around the league. Actually, injury news is down a little bit, believe it or not. I'm serious. We're going to get there. We got to talk about things that are going on. We're going to take a look at all the teams in our divisions, where we stand, who's some stud outliers when it comes to league leaders in batting, pitching, and everything. We're going to take a look at how the postseason would break down if the season were to end right now. It's a fun little look. We would see what the matchups would be, also where teams just ultimately fall in a 16-game playoff. And we got to talk trade deadline because that is right around the corner, August 31st. So we have to be prepared for that because Monday's going to be here before you know it. It feels very weird because we just haven't played enough baseball for a trade deadline, but regardless of how you feel about it, it's coming either way. So let's get started off with some news and noise around the league, keeping you up to date on all 30 MLB teams. And we're going to start off with the injury news because, like I said, it's pretty light compared to what we have been seeing in the past. So we're going to take the chance to dive into that. Starting off with our Houston Astros and Mr. George Springer. Springer was forced to leave the Astros' 11-4 win against the Angels on Monday when he was hit on the left elbow by a pitch. He isn't in the lineup for the game, or either of the games, for Tuesday's doubleheader against the Angels. Dusty Baker said that Springer could be used as a defensive replacement, but right now the plan is that he is not going to be hitting at all, so if you see him at all, it's going to be late-game situations with the expectation that he's just there to help the defensive side. So George Springer most likely returning, though, probably day-to-day with that injury having to do with his left elbow. For the Colorado Rockies, man, a team that started out hot that's just going the other direction now. Charlie Blackmon was scratched from Monday's matchup against the Diamondbacks with left quad tightness. He had entered Monday leading the majors with 45 hits and is batting .405 on the season. He is, oddly enough, slumping a little bit. It's hard to say that for a guy who's batting .400, but he was up there and just having some little bit of injury issues. They want to get him back to his normal self, so they're going to scratch him just for Monday's game, see how he is going forward. And some other Rockies injury news. David Dahl had lower back soreness. He was scheduled to hit against Chichi Gonzalez in a simulated game for the Rockies on Tuesday. Chichi Gonzalez was also battling right bicep tendonitis. So according to manager Bud Black, both players are on the 10-day EL right now. So we'll see. With that scratch, we don't know when they're going to all be back to play, but moving forward, it's kind of still in a question mark with them. Rockies need to get some things going their direction because, like I said, starting to slump in an NL West division that is incredibly tough. For the Arizona Diamondbacks, Madison Bumgarner, feels like we're talking about him a lot, who is still on the IL with a mid-back strain, could be finally nearing a return. He had a simulated game on Sunday. Diamondbacks are going to need any type of starting pitching they can after they had to scratch Merrill Kelly about an hour before his start on Monday against the Rockies at Chase Field. Merrill Kelly has been placed on the 10-day IL list with right shoulder nerve impingement, and right-hander Riley Smith was called up from the team's alternate training site to take that roster spot. The Diamondbacks have just been an interesting. We thought they could be good this year. They had potential considering the fact that we knew their offense was going to be pretty good, and that's been the case in the NLS for all those teams. But the pitching was going to be in question. They started off slow, came out hot, and now they're kind of falling back down a little bit. So the return of Madison Bumgarner would be something that I'm sure the team would very much welcome. For the Tampa Bay Rays, Kevin Kiermaier left their 6-4 loss to the Blue Jays on Monday, being called right foot discomfort. He was a big defensive player for the Rays. He was hit by a pitch on the foot in the 6th inning, which is believed to be the reason why the outfielder was removed from the game. Kiermaier played center field in the 7th. He was replaced by Manuel Margot in the 8th. But the good news for the Rays is that all X-rays were negative, so they're hoping that he will come back sooner rather than later. For the Baltimore Orioles, Wade LeBlanc, well, his season is over 2 days after having to leave in the 1st inning of Sunday's 5-4 win with what looked to be an elbow injury. He was placed on the 60-day IL list with a stress reaction in his left elbow. So, yeah, whenever you see any of these guys go to that 60-day IL, that's just sad news for a team. And the Orioles were fighting to try to be in any type of playoff picture. You don't want to see any starting pitching go down, that's for sure. So, some sad news there for the Baltimore Orioles. Then for the LA Dodgers, Justin Turner was held out of Sunday because of his left hamstring suffering from discomfort after being hit by a pitch Saturday night, but he's expected to return to the lineup Tuesday. So by the time you're hearing this, he might have played last night. There's still swelling, bruising, but manager Dave Roberts says there's improvement. He could play, but they're choosing to give him today and today off. When he said that today was counting about Sunday, they expected him to be back Tuesday. So that's it for at least major injury news. But the nice thing is we have some guys returning, it looks like. For the Chicago Cubs, Jose Quintana will be activated from the IL Tuesday, but will start his season in the bullpen after missing action with what was called an injured pitching hand. Big news for the Cubs. Any help with pitching is going to be good for them, especially if they can get it in that bullpen. We know that that's one of their weaknesses, so maybe Quintana will be a boost out of there, but there's also potential that he won't sit there for too long, considering his long history as a starter. The Chicago Cubs currently sitting atop the NL Central at 18-10, so anything to help their chances to be better in this season, I'm sure they're going to be happy about it. For the Atlanta Braves, Ronald Acuna Jr. and Nick Markakis return to the lineup for Tuesday's game against the Yankees after being activated from the IL. The Braves reinstated Acuna and Markakis as part of a series of roster moves. Acuna has not played since August 10th because of some lingering wrist issues, while Markakis was placed on the IL last week after being potentially exposed to COVID-19. And remember, he had opted out to start the season, came back later. The Braves said at the time that they made the move out of an abundance of caution after Markakis tested negative for the virus. The Braves are also calling up top pitching prospect Ian Anderson. We talked about him in the last podcast that we recorded. He would be a fun call-up for him because they just need some pitching help. Making his major league debut. He's going to start Tuesday's game. So when you hear this, his pitching will be done. Hopefully he will be looking all right. So that's some big news for the Atlanta Braves. The Indians have Mike Clevinger set to return Wednesday from the virus-related demotion. This is a very interesting discussion right now. It's the first time he will be pitching since breaking team rules and MLB coronavirus protocols, and he was demoted for 10 days. He was sent over to their alternate site, had to stay there for those 10 days before coming back. He had last pitched on August 5th at Cincinnati, and then 3 days later, that's when him and Zach Plesac violated the team's code of conduct by going out to dinner and risking themselves to exposure in Chicago. Something, though, that is very much worth noting, at least at the moment, Cleveland has not recalled Plesac as well. So we will see if that changes. It's an interesting point being made, but it very much could change moving forward. We'll have to see about that. And then some news related to weather. The Houston Astros game against the LA Angels that was scheduled for Wednesday has been postponed until next month because of Hurricane Laura. This game will be made up as part of a doubleheader on September 5th in Anaheim. Los Angeles will be the home team for the first game of the doubleheader, and the Astros will be the home team for the second game, which is the rescheduled game. Rescheduled game will be played as part of the previously scheduled series with the Angels set for September 4th through the 6th. This is the second time the series has been altered because of tropical weather, and this is something that it gets very interesting because you almost can't control it a little bit. It's why we have the conversation about a lot of teams. If all these postponements and suspensions happen, yes, we're allowed to do a ton of double headers, but it gets to be very tricky the later we move into the season. So we'll have to see what happens with that one. And then we had some major milestone news, and this is the stuff I love talking about just because it really commemorates a major career, and when it comes down to it, one of the best hitters that I have seen in my lifetime. So Los Angeles Angels first baseman Albert Pujols is now alone in second place on the Major League Baseball career RBI list. Now, we do have to put a little asterisk on there. I'll tell you why in a second. But Pujols passed Alex Rodriguez on the list with an RBI single in the fifth inning of Monday night's 11-4 loss to the Houston Astros in Houston. That gives him 2,087 career RBIs. Amazing. Record holder, Hank Aaron, at 2,297, so 210 behind. How much longer Pujols will play, not really sure, so he's going to have some work to definitely catch up to Hammer and Hank. Now, I say asterisk before because this has to be mentioned, and it's all up to perception for some people. Babe Ruth had 2,214 career RBIs, so that would be above Pujols' 2,087, and right behind Hank Aaron. But he isn't officially on the career RBI list because RBIs did not become an official stat until 1920. So now it gets to be an interesting discussion because do you count Babe Ruth because of when the stat became official, or do you not? And realistically, I look at it as the sense, well, I'm going to read it the way it is by the people that keep the stats, but if it was me, I mean, you're batting in runs. Even though it wasn't an official stat, you're bringing these runs in because of the way that you hit. It seems kind of silly that we don't count them in this. But again, I'm not the one that's in charge of this. Don't look at me. I think it's silly just like you. We just kind of got to deal with it. So that's going to be it for news and noise around the league. Like I said, injury news, light. It feels really good to actually say that we don't have a ton of injuries to talk about, especially with tons of pitchers. I mean, Wade LeBlanc ending his season, that was hard to see. We talked about Bumgarner and Merrill Kelly. It's light. Let's keep it that way. If we're going to see this season play out, it's going to be crazy and cuckoo with everything going on. At least let's have some health moving forward. That would just be huge to see. So that's going to be it for news and noise. When we come back, we're going to take a look at where every team is standing right now in their divisions, in the playoff race, and then we're going to talk about some league leaders that we have here in the MLB. So some exciting stuff to talk about on the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Well, we are finally making it to that 30-game mark. Yes, halfway through. So we have to take the moment to step aside and look at where we fall for all of our teams in our divisions across the American League and National League. And we're starting to see a few more trends with teams. I don't think there's as many surprises right now as at least early on, and like any other season, really. We're actually starting to see some of the teams that we thought were going to be competitive and may have come out of the gates a little bit slow, coming up and being better in the sense of what we expected, at least at the beginning of the year. But we're going to take the moment, nonetheless, to talk about where we are with all these teams in their divisions, as well as taking the chance to look at some of our league leaders when it comes to statistics so far this year, because, halfway point, that's a pretty big stretch of the season. So we're going to start things off in the American League like always, and on top with the American League East. This might be a little bit of a surprise, but I don't think it's a massive one in the sense of the Tampa Bay Rays are sitting on top of the American League East at the time of this recording on Tuesday at 19-11. Now, the big thing worth mentioning here is they have more games into the Yankees. And win percentage-wise, they actually are behind the Yankees, but they're standing on top because of having those more games played. Tampa Bay has scored 157 runs. I am actually greatly impressed with the sense of how many runs they have scored this year, because we knew their offense was going to be balanced, but I didn't really expect them to have as potent of an offense as they had. And then the New York Yankees sitting right behind them. They are behind by 22 runs, but they also have played 5 less games. And knowing that Yankees offense, there's a pretty good chance that they can make up those runs. Was a little surprised to see their run differentials, I guess, not as high. Now, the Tampa Bay Rays starters haven't been as great as we were probably expecting them to be at the beginning of the year. Only plus 25 runs on the whole season. The New York Yankees plus 28. They're going to be the two teams to beat in this division. I would expect both of these two to make the playoffs for sure, especially going forward. Right behind them, though, is a little bit of a fight that we have between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Baltimore Orioles. The Blue Jays 14-13, the Orioles 14-14, both showing some promising play. Now, the Blue Jays, ton of youth, a lot of excitement in this team. 7-3 in their last 10. Interestingly enough, though, their playoff percentage, at least possibility, ESPN says there's a 38% chance of them making the playoffs. And a lot of that comes down to, who they have to play the rest of the way out. Going to have games against the Yankees and the Rays, which are going to be tough series. You're going to be seeing those teams in the National League East that might be a little bit better than what their record actually shows. So that's interesting. The Baltimore Orioles is way below that at 15.4% odds of them making the playoffs. They've been a fun surprise. Nobody was really expecting the offense to be coming from Baltimore like we were given, and they still are producing quite a bit of runs, scoring 139 runs this year. But their pitching is still within question. I imagine they're going to be a team that has to look at themselves and go, we might have to sell by Monday, but maybe they will not. Maybe they'll keep thinking they can play on, but at least long term, you're getting some good play out of these guys. Try to build up to your resources just a little bit. And then the Boston Red Sox at 9-20, bringing up the bottom of the division. They can score as well. 133 runs. Problem is they've given up 175. They can't stop teams from getting runs across. It's sad. And, your best pitcher is not there for Chris Sale, but one guy wasn't going to fix it all, and they're going to be in sell mode. And it's probably good for them to try to reload and retool that farm system. In the American League Central, Minnesota Twins, one of the favorites to win this, plus 41 in runs, 20-10 on the year. Just a solid offensive team. And if they're going to get pitching, they're going to be even better and even scarier. No surprises at all. And right behind them, these two teams at 17 and 12 apiece, the Cleveland Indians and the Chicago White Sox. These are just three teams that have been hot in the American League Central. All three, Twins, Indians, and White Sox, are 7-3 in their last 10 games. Their playoff percentage, Twins are at 98%, Indians 97%, White Sox 89%. Feeling like these three could all make the playoffs. And it's going to be a loaded American League Central and tough fight till the end. You feel bad for the Tigers and the Royals because they just got to play some very tough opponents. Tigers have fallen off from the pace that we saw. But the nice thing about them, the exciting thing, is they have some young pitching prospects that are worth watching. I mean, Casey Mize is going to be an exciting guy going forward. They're going to have a lot of fun pieces potentially called up. And you also have the chase for Miguel Cabrera going after some career accolades. So it's not like this season is a lost season for the Tigers. There's going to be some good things going on that they can still do. I imagine that we're going to see the Royals as well selling and the Tigers as well selling. I mean, they could be trading off a guy like Matthew Boyd. We can see that happening. But it's going to be most likely a rebuilding phase for these two at the bottom of the AL Central. And it's just tough. You got three really good teams ahead of you. That's just kind of what they have to battle this year in a 60-game stretch. The AL West, team on top, the Oakland Athletics at 20-10. They've been one of the best teams in baseball this year. 146 runs, 114 given up. Their playoff percentage as of right now is 99.2%. I was more expecting them to finish in second in this division, but coming in, they weren't under the radar. We knew they were good. We thought they were going to be fighting for this division, if not a playoff spot. And so far, they've been impressive throughout. And right behind them, the Houston Astros, 7-3 in their last 10. They have a 96% chance to make the playoffs as well, sitting at 16-13, so barely above 500. But there's still just a good chance the rest of the way that they can pick up some games when you have the three teams behind you in the AL West. Texas Rangers, Seattle Mariners, Los Angeles Angels. These are three teams that are just trying to figure things out, their identities moving forward. The Rangers still have something in Lance Lynn. That's something that's exciting for them, but they're just trying to find any offensive production they really can. The Seattle Mariners, they're going to be in a rebuild. They got some exciting young prospects. They might even have some more to call up in the future, but they're going to be in sell mode. And then the Los Angeles Angels, can we just get some pitching? This offense has the potential to do good things, be great. I mean, those names with Trout, Rendon, Ohtani, I mean, you just need to get some pitching. And I do wonder if they'd have the opportunity, if they will try to go after a starter at this trade deadline, even if they know it might not alter their season. It's something that I would be looking at if I was the Los Angeles Angels. Jumping over to the National League, the NL East, the Atlanta Braves, 16-12, sitting on top. Were the season favorites right away. They are the only team to have a plus run differential in the NL East at plus 22. They just got back Acuna Jr., Markakis, boosting that offense that already has been pretty solid. It's going to be pitching for them. If there is a team to watch for starting pitching to come back, it's going to be the Atlanta Braves. We've also seen some video of Cole Hamels getting ready, progressing towards possibly playing again, hopefully, taking some throwing before games, getting some reps in. When he'll be ready, we don't really know. It's going to be a team to watch at the trade deadline for sure. Miami Marlins sitting behind them at 12-11, and they are in second in the NL East, but yet their playoff percentage is only 11% prediction from ESPN. They do not believe in the Marlins. They don't think it's going to happen, and understandably so. They're 3-7 in their last 10. They're kind of holding on from their hot start after they came back from their team breakout of COVID cases. So we might see them slip and fall a little bit more. They're kind of on the luxury of not playing as many games as other teams. Sitting in third, though, is the New York Mets at 12-14. Currently 57% chance of making the playoffs. They're on a 3-game win streak. Interesting to watch. I don't know if I believe in this team as much with their pitching woes that they've had, but we'll see going forward. The Washington Nationals at 11-15, they're holding on as much as they can, going 5-5 in their last 10, same as the Mets. And another team that went 5-5 in their last 10, holding on 10-14, is the Phillies. Now, interestingly enough, Phillies right now currently in last place in the NL East at 10-14, but has the second highest percentage probability to make the playoffs. That offense is exciting. The starting pitching isn't awful. That bullpen is where the work needs to be done. And we might be talking about the Phillies just a little bit differently if that was the case. The NL Central, we have the Chicago Cubs standing on top. They've been there for a long, long stretch of the season, holding on tight to that top spot. Plus 10 run differential, 131 runs scored so far on the year. 5-5 in their last 10. They have a high percentage of making the playoffs as well at 96%. The thing that's nice for them is they have a pretty good lead on the Cardinals right behind them at 3 games, but the Cardinals have a lot of games to make up. And then the Brewers sitting back at 5.5 games behind them in third place. Now the Brewers have the highest probability behind the Cubs in the NL Central to make the playoffs. They have them at 66% right now, but they have some things that need to turn around. They're coming off a win against the Reds on Monday, but they did have a tough series with the Pittsburgh Pirates, losing 3 there. They're a team that's really up and down. Now, I will say about the Brewers, if they have a lead, their bullpen's scary. The problem is getting that lead most days, as they've scored 108 runs on the year, giving up 132. Get a lead, Milwaukee, and then you get to hand it over to Hader in the back and those other guys that have been great. It's a scarier team. It's a scarier team. Get on the board early. Then you have the Cincinnati Reds sitting in fourth. They have some exciting pieces. It's all about stringing it together. They're on a 3-game losing streak, 3-7 in their last 10. Got to turn some things around, but you can't count the Reds out, and predictions say they have a 56% chance of making the playoffs, so they're not quite done yet either. Pirates, though, even though coming on that 3-game win streak against the Brewers, 7-17, a big hill to climb, most likely not going to be coming back this season. The National League West, probably our best team in Major League Baseball. I'm putting that stamp down. I don't think I'm saying anything crazy. The Los Angeles Dodgers, 22-8, considered to be one of the best at the start of the year. They just have so many weapons. They've put up 171 runs in baseball this season, easily tops in the league. 9-1 in their last 10. Almost a certainty they're going to make the playoffs. But right behind them, one of the other hottest teams in baseball, the San Diego Padres, on a 7-game win streak, 18-12. We're starting to see those young guys come along, as well as their big free agent moves. Hosmer's been coming back. Machado's been doing some things. It's all going to be about some of this pitching coming around. Maybe they are a team that needs to make a move for the bullpen. Maybe they call up a big-time prospect in Mackenzie Gore, thinking that their season is now. Colorado Rockies currently sit in third, 2-8 in their last 10. They're slumping. They're trending the wrong direction, especially when you have a team in the San Francisco Giants, 14-16, won 6 in a row. These guys have a 7% chance of making the playoffs as of right now. But they just continue to hang around. 149 runs this year. They have some players that are fun and exciting, even though you would have looked at that roster at the start of the year and thought, nah, there's no way. They're playing some good baseball. And then the Arizona Diamondbacks at the bottom now, they have just been a roller coaster of up and down this season, losing 6 in a row right now. Playoff percentages, though, 54% chance of making it, even though they sit at 13-17 at the bottom of the National League West. They could climb back up a little bit, but they got some work to do because the Dodgers and Padres are just two loaded teams ahead of them. Looking at some statistical leaders around the MLB, our batting average champion is now DJ LeMahieu, even though he's been out for quite some time because Charlie Blackmon has slumped right behind him, but still batting at a respectable 405. Blackman he was that hot that even with this little slump, quote-unquote slump, he's down to 405. Paul Goldschmidt, qualifying now. He's batting .368 for the Cardinals as they're trying to catch up on games. He's been great offensively. Kyle Lewis, the rookie, still mashing the ball at .368, and then the surprise performer, Donovan Solano, still at .363, being great for that Giants team, a big reason why they're winning so many games. Home runs, Fernando Tatis has been great at 12. That guy has been mashing, been a MVP-type candidate for the Padres. Fun, young, exciting. A lot of great ways to classify him. 3 guys at 11, Nelson Cruz, the ageless wonder, Mookie Betts, the big guy for the Dodgers this year, and Jose Abreu, who has just been hot with the bat. As the Chicago Cubs, they don't want to see him at the plate much more, I imagine. And then Mike Trout sitting at 10. RBIs, some of the same suspects. Tatis with 29, Abreu with 28, Nelson Cruz 27. Baltimore Orioles getting a little bit of a shout-out with Anthony Santander with 27 as well, and then Mike Trout at 25. Charlie Blackmon, even though batting average went down, he still leads the league in hits at 45. David Fletcher, another good offensive piece for the Angels at 40. Again, get the Angels some pitching. These guys have offense. Kyle Lewis, the rookie, at 39, and then Ketel Marte and Jose Abreu at 38 apiece. Some pitchers that have been doing great things for us. Well, when it comes to leading the league in wins, Shane Bieber has been great, along with Yu Darvish and Randy Dobnak. For the Twins, Darvish for the Cubs, all have 5 wins apiece, and then we have a collection of guys at 4 wins. ERA, well, Bauer got hit around a little bit against the Brewers, so he dropped down, and Shane Bieber takes over that spot as well with a 1.11 ERA. Max Fried, a shining light for the Atlanta Braves at a 1.32 ERA. Lance Lynn, awesome, 1.59. Trevor Bauer jumped down to 1.65. He's sitting at 4th, and then Yu Darvish at 1.70, continuing to have a great season. Strikeouts, Shane Bieber as well on the top. Starting to notice a trend here. 65 strikeouts. Sonny Gray with 51. Lance Lynn 50. Trevor Bauer 49. Saves so far on the season. Well, our top guy has to be Liam Hendricks with 9. Zach Britton, even though injury problems, at 8. Taylor Rogers for Minnesota at 7. Kenley Jansen and Brad Hand, 7 apiece as well. So that's going to be it for our look around the league, talking about all our teams in the division, talking about some of our league leaders, getting you caught up on all of that information. Next up, we are going to be talking about if the season ended right now, where would we be for some postseason action? It's going to be fun to look at because 16 teams making it. What 16 are in? What matchups would we have? Are these exciting ones? Would we like to move things around a little bit? Well, we're going to talk about it here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, the GSMC Podcast Network.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Got some postseason talk coming your way. I don't think it's too early to start bringing this up, especially when we're halfway through the season. Our trade deadline is approaching. It seems like such a good time to start talk about the postseason. And something fun that the MLB Network seems to do is they like to take a look at all the matchups that would be happening in the postseason every few weeks. They did this earlier in the year. I had a good time reading it, but I was kind of like, I'm going to stay away from this because, well, it's just too early. We don't really know what a lot of this is going to be. And truly, we don't know a lot of things still as we move forward because we have a lot of games to be made up with doubleheaders. That's going to alter a lot of things. Do any other potential postponements come? There's going to be teams that slide in and out of this thing. No surprise there. But still fun to look at nonetheless. And if there's something we need to talk about, because it just needs to continue being brought up, it's that the playoff format obviously has changed this season. 16 teams are making the playoffs this year. That's the way it's going to be. The first round is a 3-game series. Exciting because 3 games is a short thing. Anything can happen. How this is going to break up in terms of seeding, well, the top 3 seeds, numbers 1 through 3 in the National League and American League, will be the 3 division winners. So East, Central, West. If you win your division, you're getting a top 3 seed. Going to go by record there. The next 3 seeds, 4, 5, and 6, will go to the 3 teams that finish in second place in their division in order of record. So if you finish second, East, Central, West, best record settling that up. So there is some value in doing well in your division. But then the final 2 seeds, 7 and 8, will go to the 2 teams with the next best records. Order in your division does not matter. So realistically, we could have 4 teams from a singular division. Likely? No. But possible? Yes. So regardless of that division standing, that gets to be very, very important. And these are actually considered your wild card teams. So we have to talk about that. Any ties will be broken mathematically. No tiebreaker games. Gets to be a lot tougher because you have teams that will be traveling a lot and they're trying to keep that probably limited. Bummer, I know, considering that we have play-in games and that's one of the most exciting things in baseball. I understand. I'm not going to argue against that. I get it. So depending on what ends up happening with the Cardinals, it could just be winning percentage. Don't be surprised. I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, that all 60 games get in. But it's going to be interesting. And like we said, first series, 3 games. All of the higher seeds get home field advantage for all 3 games. You got to win 2 to advance. That's going to be an exciting weekend. I actually am interested to see how this plays out. And if you have any bones to pick with the way it's set up, I'm sorry, but 16 teams wouldn't make it realistically anyways. Maybe you got a bone to pick if you're like the 4 or 5, but you could have been in the wild card game where you only get 1 game, period. So don't get crazy. Don't get crazy about getting picky with this. It's a 2020 season. It's a crazy season. Let it be. So if the season were to end today, as of this recording, August 25th, Tuesday, August 25th, if you're listening to this Wednesday, yeah, things might have altered a little bit, but this is what we would have right now. The number 1 seed in the American League would be the Oakland A's. Last week, they were the number 2 seed, so things can change. And the number 8 seed would actually be one of my exciting teams, the Toronto Blue Jays. And this would be fun in the sense of the A's are just kind of a class of the American League, have been great, dominant throughout the season, consistently playing well. And this Blue Jays team is just an up-and-comer. A young squad with young, fun players that has the chance to just bring a lot of excitement to the game. I would love to see the Blue Jays in the playoffs regardless what seed they're in. The Oakland A's are going to be competitive, and you got to imagine they're sticking around. I like this matchup right away. There's something that just feels great about it, even though there's no real rivalry here, or there's nothing that would say like, ooh, this is a massive storyline. I just think this is a really good team against a young and exciting team, and I would love to watch it. Personally, that is just me. In a 3-game series, again, anything could happen. Our next series would be the Twins, number 2 seed, versus the White Sox, the number 7 seed. So they would be one of the last teams sneaking in because of their good record. Few teams have been hotter than the White Sox right now. Is that going to continue through the year? We don't know. We'll see. If Jose Abreu keeps swinging the stick he is right now, we got to watch out for that offense. This has the potential to be a series where many, many, many runs are scored. Because as much as I hype up the White Sox offense, the Twins offense is just as good. They know how to score. And if they get back a very healthy Josh Donaldson, we'll see what happens with that as well. The Chicago White Sox are in a sense kind of similar to the Blue Jays. They got some good young talent, exciting young talent, but they've also spent some money to put together quite a lineup. And the Twins have just been steadily solid over the last few years, and I'm sure they'd just be very happy to be away from the Yankees to start a series. And you can't ignore the fact that this is two American League Central teams. That would be some fun. Our next series would be the Yankees, number 3, against the Astros. Wow, is this a tough draw for the Astros, considering the team that we expect and kind of know them to be. The Yankees are technically a half game behind the Rays in the standings. We got to talk about that at this moment. But because they've played 5 fewer games, their winning percentage is higher. So that's why they're at the 3 seed over the Rays at the 4 seed. I know that would be something to be brought up and be like, hey, we just talked about earlier how the Rays are winning the division. I know. It's percentage-wise why they would be higher at the moment. So the number of games issues will be sorted out by the end of the year, but right now that would be the thing going on. Yankees, exciting because we know of the offensive production that they have. Solid bullpen when healthy. Starting pitching, they have some names as well. I also like the idea of Garrett Cole getting to go up against the Astros after leaving them with such a massive contract this offseason. That's a fun storyline in itself. Also, this would be one of the series where I think many fans would be very conflicted. As much as there are a lot of Yankees fans, there are a lot of people that don't like the Yankees. And if there is team number 1 that is hated by many, many, many fans of the MLB right now, it's the Houston Astros. So we're pitting 2 teams that might be one of the most hated teams, or the 2 most hated teams, against each other in the first round. And I think we'd have a lot more people siding with the Yankees. I don't know. I'm making a call there just thinking that's possible. But regardless, I think it would be fun with a lot of the offense there. And it would be an intense series. You could definitely see that happening. And then our last series that we would see in the American League in the first round would be the Tampa Bay Rays, the number 4, versus the number 5 Cleveland Indians. And again, the winning percentage thing is what bumps the Rays down. We got a rematch of the 2013 American League wildcard game here. That's the only time those teams have ever faced each other in the postseason. Interesting, as it's been 2 teams that have had some of their success in how many years in the last 10 years or so. It's 2 teams that could be making some noise at the trade deadline as well. If we saw Rays Indians, I'd be excited about the possibility of the pitching from both teams, also the depth that the Rays have there offensively. But I don't think this would be a finished product from either of these teams. The Indians need to get some help offensively. The Rays may look to get some offensive help as well, may try to shore up some things with their pitching, but I mean, their starting pitching can be really good. So it would be an interesting series. I don't have major storylines that I'd like to throw at it right away, but it's just something that I would have to say I'd want to see more. I want to see more what's going to happen with these teams before I say I like one over the other. Early reactions, teams that on the outside looking in, I mean, you don't have Baltimore, obviously, but that's really your only team that's not in it for the American League. You don't have any strong records coming from other squads. 11-16 Detroit, they're not going to be in it right now. 11-17 Texas Rangers. So it seems pretty fair because all of these teams are either, well, actually, they're all above 500 at the moment as we're saying this. So it seems fair. Seems fair that these 8 teams would make it, and I am okay with these lists and matchups. Are there some more favorable matchups or more exciting ones? Oh, yeah, sure, but I wouldn't complain if this was our opening weekend of baseball. I'd actually be loving this postseason so far. Diving into the National League, this one gets a little more interesting, I would say. Our top dog, the Dodgers. We're not surprised there. I mean, they are loaded, sitting at the top spot in the National League, also having the best record in baseball. No shock here. This offense is huge. And we get to see, as of right now, they would be matching up with the San Francisco Giants. We would have one of the best baseball rivalries out of the gates in the postseason. And you can't tell me that wouldn't bring a little extra fire. Would I pick the Giants? No. No chance. I would never pick them in this series. But could they sneak a game and make this an exciting one? Oh, for sure. For sure. Especially with the offense and the way they've been producing this year. 14-16 right now. The interesting thing to bring up about the Giants is that they are the 4th team from the NL West that would make it if the season ended right now. Only have a 7% chance odds from ESPN to actually make the playoffs. So it's a very cool idea. Betting odds say that the Giants aren't going to stick around, but I got to continue and just give them props because they are outperforming what a lot of people thought from them, and they have some great players. The dilemma that the Giants are going to have is come Monday is, do they sell or do they not? Do they think they can make a playoffs? Because they have some guys that they probably could unload to get some future chips, but that's for another discussion. Our next series in the National League would be between the number 2 Chicago Cubs versus the number 7 Colorado Rockies. The Rockies being that 3rd team to make it from the NL West. Already talked about 2 of them in the Dodgers and the Giants. The Cubs winning the National League Central would be getting quite the favorable matchup. The Rockies have been struggling. If they had not won on Monday in this whole scenario, they wouldn't even be in the playoffs. They actually would fall out of this completely. And it makes things even tougher that they would have to travel to Chicago to play the Cubs. The Cubs team that has been okay as of recent, but overall pretty good. I'm sure they would not be complaining that Colorado's coming to town with the way that they have been playing as of late. Our next series, the number 3 Atlanta Braves, they would be our last division winner as they take the National League East. They actually would be playing the Miami Marlins. The Marlins are sticking around. They have a game on the Braves because of Monday, bringing Atlanta back to earth a little bit with that win. But will they battle for that National League East? We're going to have to see some more of these doubleheaders roll in. Right now, even though they're sitting in second, they got a lot of games to make up. Only 23 played as of Monday, so Tuesday night going to get their next one in. Every single time, this is a fun stat, one of my favorite stats, the Marlins have ever made the postseason, they've won a World Series. So you know what? If this 16-game team format changes things, look out for that. And our final National League series would be between the Padres at number 4 versus the Cardinals at number 5. And this, again, these 4-5 matchups are going to be the ones where you feel bad for a team, but realistically, that's the way it's going to be. A loaded, very tough, one of the best teams in the Bigs, Padres, getting a 4 seed just because of the way it breaks down, and the Cardinals falling back in after getting some games. They're 8-5 since they've come back from the quarantine. Technically, all in second place in the NL Central. 2.5 games up on Milwaukee currently. And with that, here you are rewarded by playing the Padres team that's won 7 in a row. I would like this in the sense of any series with the Padres I'm going to be excited about. I get to watch Tatis, Machado, Hosmer. Will Myers has been bouncing back. I'm all for it. All for it. And a Cardinals team, I mean, historically, they're just good at baseball. What are you going to? What more are you going to ask for? A hot up-and-comer against a team that's going to probably be pretty solid. It's a great series to have. Now, I say that the National League is very interesting in the sense that we have teams we have to keep our eyes on. Everyone in the National League East is still in play. Atlanta and Miami would make it in this scenario, but the Mets, Nationals, and Phillies all still have a chance because between them all, it's only a 4-game differential. Phillies being in last place, 4 games behind. Milwaukee is interesting. Cincinnati is interesting. Can they turn things around a little bit? They both have over 50% chance of making the playoff odds, but we know that with how good the West has been this year, are 3 teams from the Central going to make it? It's going to be tough. And then that NL West, right now, 4 teams would make the playoffs. 4. Is that realistic for the end of the season? Again, most likely not, but if it can happen 30 games in, for sure that there's a chance that it could happen by 60. So we'll have to see. I like the way a lot of these set up. I liked having the division rivals in series. Now, we saw that in the American League with potential Twins and White Sox. That's fun. We see that in the National League with Dodgers-Giants. There's a good chance that we're going to see one of those. Oh, so we also have Braves-Marlins if that one held on. We're going to see these for sure. I want to keep the Dodgers and Padres away from each other as long as I can if they can move on. It's a little bit of a bias on that. I love this Padres team. I think this Dodgers team is that good. I'm hoping that they meet each other in an NLCS because I think that's just fireworks waiting to happen. I want to see how this breaks down a little bit further. This National League is going to have a lot of shifting and a lot of movement going on. The American League feels like very close to the 8 teams we're going to see, with maybe some shuffling of position. But the National League, it's so wide open. As of right now, above 70%, we only have 3 teams above 70% playoff percentage odds. So there's a lot of movement to be done in the National League. Something worth monitoring. So that's going to be it for looking at playoff scenarios if the season were to end at this very moment. Exciting. I like talking the playoffs, and if 30 games went this quick, it's not going to be too long until another 30 games happen, especially with all the doubleheaders that we have slated moving forward. We're going to take one more quick break, and when we come back from our little commercial, we need to talk about trade season because it is upon us, and it is time to talk about some moves that could be made here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast here on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Collin Manley, and we have to talk some trade information. Now, we just got done going around at least what the playoffs would look like right now if the season ended halfway. And it's important to bring up that information because we're at a stretch where a lot of these teams have to decide if they're going to be buyers and sellers because the trade deadline is coming. And that doesn't ultimately mean that we're going to have a crazy trade deadline. Jeff Passan had an article come out for ESPN about the trade deadline recently, and he had to talk about some real information. Is this trade deadline going to be boring was a question he had to ask in there. And he thought there's a chance it's going to be. And it has to deal with the fact that this season is so unique, so short. Is it worth it to sell high on some guys in this year? Teams are going to be evaluating. Do they think they're good enough to win right now or not? And it's hard because with the 16 teams making the playoffs, we have roughly say about 6-7 teams that might be thinking we can all make it. Like a lot of teams in the National League, outside of really the Pirates, do they think they have no chance of making it? I would bet you those 5 in the NL East, 5 in the NL West, and the top 4 in the NL Central probably all think they have a reasonable chance at making it to the postseason. So if that's the case, are they buying? Are they selling? What are they going to do? It's going to be interesting to watch. Now, just me making a short list, I definitely brought up some things that I think teams would be needing going forward. So the number one thing that I think a lot of the teams are going to go into Monday looking for is flat out bullpen help. And there's just obvious names that come to mind when you're looking at teams that need bullpen help. The Phillies, they've already made a trade with the Red Sox, trying to beef up their bullpen in any way. It's been one of the worst bullpens we've ever seen. And it seems mean and harsh to say that, but that's just the reality. It's been very, very bad. Seeing if they can turn that thing around. The Cubs, it was a question mark coming into the season, especially if Craig Kimbrell was not going to be great. Well, he's had his issues. That's for certain. I mean, what are you going to do? You need to shore that up because especially when you get to the playoffs, you have to be a competent bullpen. The Padres have some questions to answer with the loss of Kirby Yates recently. That's your closer who has not really been the best of the best all season. But what are you going to do to try to get him going? And then the Twins are another team that I just wrote down that I think would be happy to add to their bullpen as well. Starting pitching has given them some good moments, but as they've gotten later in games, there's been some issues for the team. Starting pitching, this one is pretty obvious with me. I mean, the Atlanta Braves are a team that needs pitching help. I saw the graphic that had to do with their 5 starting pitchers that they were going to have at the beginning of the year. Not even close to realistic when it comes to injuries, opt-outs, and just designated for assignments, the things that have happened there. They don't have much going on for them outside of Fried, who's been absolutely amazing. So you got one top-end starter. Maybe Cole Hamels is coming back, but they're a team that could be in the action for any type of starting pitching that becomes available. The White Sox will look to add to their rotation. I mean, they have Dallas Keuchel, but other than that, big names for them when it comes to starters, it's a lack. They're a strong offensive team. It is what it is, and we'll see if they add. The Yankees, I'm sure, would be glad to add any more starting pitching that they can, because outside of like Garrett Cole, I mean, have they been getting the production that they want from all of their starting rotation? No, that's lacking a little bit. And then one team that I at least find very, very, very interesting because they are so far out of it is the Los Angeles Angels. But their biggest problem is pitching. I'm sure if you went to the front office of the Angels and you got to have them answer everything honestly, they would not have many concerns with their offense whatsoever. If anything, they need to figure out how to get everyone on the field at times. It's going to be starting pitching with Ohtani being held back for the rest of the season. What can they do? I would not be shocked if they made a move to get a pitcher that they have some player control moving forward. Cough, cough, wink, wink, Mike Clevenger. Just saying. Would be something. And then a team like the Diamondbacks who just need any pitching help they can get, because realistically they probably still think that they are in this thing for the long run, because you have the Rockies who are falling off. Can the Giants sustain? You have a chance that you could slide up to that 3rd spot and have one of the better records in the National League. It's possible. So you'd have to see what's going to happen there for sure. Offensive help, teams that I had right away that I thought of, the Milwaukee Brewers. They are just not scoring. They have the potential to have, a bullpen that scares you in the postseason and a few starters that aren't awful. I mean, Woodruff is not bad. Hauser has been okay. Can you get a lead to your bullpen? They have not been able to do that. The Cleveland Indians, they need pitching help or offensive help to give their pitching some relief. As a team, their batting average is .213. The Milwaukee Brewers, like we just talked of, they're .214. So not much better. Trying to get anything there for the Cleveland Indians. The Cincinnati Reds, they're batting .205 on the season. Need to get that picked up. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the Oakland Athletics go after a bat, as they're batting .225, even with all the winning they're doing. Chicago Cubs are batting .228. Can they get anything to get going there? It's worth mentioning. And then there's just a small list of teams that I think realistically could dump a lot of people. And right away, the Red Sox, 9-20, they look like they're going to be sellers. They have guys that can move. Jackie Bradley Jr., Christian Vasquez, J.D. Martinez. Those are just a few of the names that could be sent out. Probably very few untouchables on that team, maybe Bogarts and Devers. A lot of things that could be happening. The Kansas City Royals, they have some bullpen arms that they could get rid of. Rosenthal has really brought his career back around. Whit Merrifield could be a guy on the move. Does Alex Gordon finally get moved? Does Salvador Perez get talked about? There's just a handful of players on that Royals team that I would not be surprised to see moving. Seattle Mariners are another team. They're in a rebuild. We knew this at the start of the season. They have to be in a rebuild. There shouldn't be any pressure on that team. Seager has been all right. He's someone you could move. It's a rebuild season for the Mariners. National League, it's really just the Pirates. Is Colin Moran a name to move? Josh Bell, is he a name to move? We'd have to kind of see for them. They are the one team in the National League that you just know is out of it. Their playoff chances right now, 0.2%. So you know that they are not going to be coming back around. That's just early thoughts, early notes on teams when I just looked around the league. Now, there has been some rumors that have been going around. Now, there's reports that teams have been reaching out to the Brewers about Josh Hader. They're listening to those reports. And with so many teams that need bullpen help and the value of bullpen pitchers this season, he would bring back a haul, a massive, massive haul, as he hasn't even given up a hit so far this season. He also has team control up to, I believe, 2023. So they are listening, but the price would be incredibly high, and this is where the concerns of this season come in, even if you have him long-term moving forward. But it's hard to believe the Brewers even wanting to move on. But it had been reported that the price would be crazy high, but I don't think they're going to turn you away if you call and ask. The Rangers reportedly have been listening to offers for Lance Lynn, who is having a phenomenal season for the Rangers as a starting pitcher. Interestingly enough, I'm wondering if they'd be willing to trade in their division, because the Angels should be calling for that. They really should be. They know what he is, and a team where their pitching staff was supposed to be a strength, Corey Kluber, Mike Minor, Kyle Gibson, Jordan Lyles, they've all been awful. You throw in Colby Allard in there, they've gone 2-12 with a 6.97 ERA over 21 games. Just bad. And the Texas offense ranks last in the American League in runs scored. And that's their biggest issue. They need to get some offense as well. So they might try to move Lance Lynn, who's been good, 4-0, 1.59 ERA through 7 starts. They could sell high on the 33-year-old. I mean, he's owed $8 million in 2021. He's going to be a great chip because cost isn't that high. He's been great. You can get a good return on him. I would not be surprised. The Indians, you got to imagine, are getting a lot of calls on Mike Clevenger and Zach Plesac. The team just brought back Clevenger from their alternate site, which makes you think that he could be safe, but I also look at it in the sense of they might bring him back to start pitching just to show that he's great and see if they can get some value. You don't know where this one's go. The interesting thing is Plesac has not been recalled yet. So you don't really know what's going on, but that's two strong pitchers that the Indians could move for offense that they greatly, greatly, greatly need. And with that said, they also still have depth in their pitching department, so it would be a loss for sure, but it's not going to be the biggest loss that they would ever have. The San Francisco Giants, tough call to make, as they've got a handful of players that they could move on. Johnny Cueto, would be a good starter that teams would probably love. I've seen talks between, or at least rumors, that maybe the Oakland Athletics are interested in Cueto to help their pitching out a little bit. He's 34 years old. It wouldn't be surprising to see him move. There's some position players. Donovan Solano has been great for them. Yastrzemski has been awesome for them. It's up there in age a little bit, on the other side of 30. You could try to get some return from them as right now. Samardzija also becomes an interesting name going forward. Don't be surprised to see a team bite on this. This might be something even the Atlanta Braves have their names all over. The Blue Jays have also been rumored to be sniffing around some pitching as well. John Paul Morrissey of Pittsburgh is a rumor as of right now. We'll see if that goes anywhere. It's a young team. They probably don't want to give up too many assets. And one other big rumor that's been going on and around is the Cincinnati Reds are actually looking to buy and not sell. They don't want to give up on Trevor Bauer or any of their big, assets in him and Sonny Gray. The thing about Bauer is he gets to be a free agent when the offseason comes, so that's why some might have thought he would have been a trade chip. But he's been great for them, and the team is also still in conversation when it comes to any type of playoff consideration. So it's something you're going to have to look at. I also dove into the fact that the Marlins get to be very interesting. They are behind when it comes to games played. But do they want to decide to be buyers in the situation that they are at? For MLB.com's John Paul Morrissey, he focused that adding bullpen help was big for them. Relief arms is something that they're looking for. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to add a little bit of offense as well. But if there's one thing that I'm scared about with this Marlins team, as they've been showing a strong presence from what we expected from them, don't oversell your farm system. Keep building it up while you go looking for any bullpen help. Okay, so far, starters for the Marlins have been pretty good with a 4.31 ERA, but their bullpen is second lowest in WAR total. So maybe they will be the one to go to the Royals and ask for Trevor Rosenthal, Greg Holland, Ian Kennedy. Maybe they will be calling other teams and seeing what they have. It's going to be interesting as Trevor Rosenthal for the Royals is going to be a hot name on this trade market, someone that I expect to be moved and many teams to be interested in. MLB.com also had some potential blockbuster trades to help some of these teams out. They talked about 5 big trades that they think a lot of teams could be having. The Royals trading Danny Duffy, their left-hander, and Trevor Rosenthal and Josh Stamont to the Yankees for third baseman Miguel Andujar and right-hander Nick Nelson. This is a big move for the Yankees, help out that bullpen even more. Zach Britton's health a little bit in question. Trevor Rosenthal, a nice name to slide in there to help things out. That could be great for the team. Another big trade that was thrown out there, the Orioles sending right-hander Alex Cobb to the Braves for right-hander Huascar, any pitching help that the Braves can get. Alex Cobb would be a good start. You can't get too picky with the team when you consider the fact that they are missing so much. He's got 3.73 ERA through 6 starts. Not too bad. Last year were some injury problems, but you got to take what you have this year and go with it. Mike Clevenger, like we said, to the Angels for outfielders Brandon Marsh and Brian Goodwin. This is a smart move if the Angels could make it happen. Get the starting pitching you greatly need, along with some contract control with Clevenger moving forward. You'd love to see something like that. Diamondbacks sending Robbie Ray to the White Sox for right-hander Cody Hewer. White Sox trying to get some pitching. This would be if the Diamondbacks believe that they need to sell. Again, this is a team that we just don't know. They're in the bottom of a tough division, but they're not out of everything, so it's just hard to say. And then the Red Sox moving on from Christian Vasquez to the Rays for some relief pitchers, just kind of really build that up because that farm system for the Rays is loaded. And if they can do anything, the Red Sox, to build back up, you got to consider it. So that's just the top 5 interesting trades that MLB.com threw out. It makes a lot of sense. I'm excited for this, even though some people think it could be a boring trade deadline. It's going to be important when it comes to pitchers, and we might be surprised. Do we see a Francisco Lindor get traded? Probably not, but we can't rule it out. We might be surprised. As Jeff Passan said in his article, these trades are kind of built up over months, over time. There might be conversations that have been happening behind the scenes that we just haven't seen, haven't heard, and then all of a sudden we're surprised with something Monday. We can be hopeful for that. So that's going to be it for some trade talk here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I want to thank you again for listening. It means a great deal. If you could, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Leave a nice review. It means a lot when you guys leave any type of comments. Maybe you have some trade targets that you want to talk about, or your team, what you want to acquire or sell off this season. What are you thinking? So if you could leave me a comment, that would be greatly appreciated. That's going to be it for me on the GSMC Baseball Podcast here on the GSMC Podcast Network. Hope you guys have a great night, and thank you again for listening.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.